Hello, hello. Mhm, 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 mhm. You have a couple minutes for people to get on. Whoops. Okay, there we go.
How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Nice. Good. At least we have some sunny weather today.
Yeah, it's supposed to get in like the mid um 60s.
Wow. Hey.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Were we still meeting up today?
Yeah, if you'd like to. I have a one appointment, but then we can do around that a little bit later.
Yeah, damn it. I spilled my coffee.
No.
My lifeblood. What am I doing?
Right. I thought you were only doing water right now.
No. You ever find me just doing water, you're gonna find a shell of a man.
There's an issue.
Yeah, I probably died inside somewhere.
Somewhere Tim fell out and then there's a
Yep.
fake.
Yep. That person is not Tim. That's a
Right.
skinwalker, and you should
Yeah.
probably
Oh, nice.
kill
Skinwalker.
that guy.
Mm. Stab him in the heart.
I can't tell you how much that movie from like late 70s, early 80s, like affected me.
Yeah.
Skinwalker, Return of the
I'll,
Skinwalker. Like
I'll have to go watch it.
it's really corny, but
Not sure.
like it's supposed to
Yeah.
be super serious, and it's about this guy who finds these glasses and he can see the skinwalkers' real faces, and it's like a big
Mhm.
like
Okay.
it's kind of a call to whole society or whatever. But anyway, respect everybody's
Nice.
time. Quick announcements. It is March. We are still moving forward with the portal for now. So if you have anybody you want to invite, make sure to invite them. We have Sovereign Summit coming up in June. Um, was that event on the 29th a public event for Heroes?
Yes, it is public. So it's a
Okay.
women's event on the 29th. We'll get the invite put up today. We found a typo in it, so it's a really pretty foo girly invite. And then we're like, oh, it says the wrong day. It's a Monday instead of Wednesday. So before we post that, we'll fix that today and get that up. But yeah, it's just a girly ceremony celebration of just gathering, just women gathering. We're celebrating a particular person, but anybody's welcome to be there. There's food, there's flowers and candles and girly foo stuff. So anybody, any adult women are welcome to come to that.
I
That's
would
the
add
20.
that it's important to note that the dismission of flowers and candles and stuff, that is Tish trying to be in her softer feminine, and it's very difficult for her because she's been in her hardened masculine for a little bit longer than
Yeah.
she'd care to admit. So it is not a dismissive of women who like those things, because Tish likes
Right.
those things,
Right.
but she spent her
Yeah.
life with people who have downgraded and degraded those things like that. So like please, like
Fair point.
that's their space. That is Deborah and Tish's space. They love crystals and as what
Yeah.
guys call foo and all that stuff. Guys don't
Yeah.
understand it because we're very
Practical.
practical. We're
Yeah.
pragmatic creatures. We're very logical, and we don't understand it. And that's fine. That's okay. So don't take that as dismissive of, if you do like
Fair.
those things, that you're going to get, dismissed
Yeah.
on site. Now, this is an opportunity for you guys to be soft and enjoy that space and enjoy that time, and honor each other as women. And so I just wanted to note that, because I've been recognizing more dismissive behaviors as a coach as I've been going through it. It's like you don't need to do that. Like
Yeah.
it's okay to
No,
like
that's
these things.
fair. I'm actually the one who fought for, like, there will be candles in the ceremony, but then it was like, well, but I want a candle burning, like, just when everybody arrives. I just want a candle. Like, she's like, well, we're gonna do this. I'm like, but I just want a candle. Like, there's some candle and some incense going, and then, like, we're gonna put flowers in her hair, and it's like, okay, well, I've got this part and this, and like, we can get some things from the dollar store. And it's like, okay, well, can we just do that, like, first before we do this other? Like, can we just play hair? Like, I just want to
Yeah.
play hair and candles while everybody comes, and then when there's food, we'll have food. it'll be Taco Wednesday, you know, but
Yeah.
so yeah, so it's not dismissive. It really is. It's a celebration of women. It's a women's circle. It's a blessing for this particular person who is serves her community really well. She's a chiropractor, but you know, serves her family. She has a young child. You know, she takes care of the community literally with her hands because she is a chiropractor and holistic. And so, you know, it's just a chance of honoring her and surrounding her with love and support. So anybody's welcome to come and be a part of that.
These are super important moments. Right. It's easy to, it's something that guys don't understand because we get our kind of function from our family.
Yeah.
Right. But you need these moments of community to come together and honor each other. Because it's easy to get lost in the BS of the day to day, right? Like it's
Right.
easy to just be like, it's my duty, it's my responsibility. I have to take care of my child. I have to take care of the house. I have to take care of whatever. These moments are an area for you to feel recognized and seen because it's easy for us to just, you know, there's a lot of the angry gurus out there, which drive me fucking nuts. Nobody gives a shit, work harder, right? Like this idea of hustle harder is being preached to women just as much as it is to men. And it's to our detriment
Yeah.
because we're losing our usefulness. We're becoming cogs, right? And a lot of people blame that on capitalism. It's not capitalism. It's a detachment from human emotion in the hopes that you will reach some level that you previously have been avoided or missing. And it's a farce. It's an absolute farce. And I get on my rants about this with Tish and Matt a lot, where you have these people coming out and selling philanthropy once they made their millions, right? So it's easy for them to be like, chase your passion. It's easy for them to be like, just work harder. Well, yeah, you have millions and billions of dollars with a ton of people in your team that will help you do those things, right? You know, just anecdotally, like our team struggles because when it comes to social media, it's me. It's me and that's it. Like if we have to edit something, if we have to change something, I have to do that. And that means it's time away from my people. It's time away from connection. It's time away from speaking. It's time away from my family, my tribe.
Your family. Yeah.
And it weighs heavy because there's the duty of stewardship as the business owner and knowing that things have to get done. And the reality of there's only enough time in the day before I have to pass out, right? And this notion of closing everything up, walling everything off for business talk, and leveraging your family as a business in that way, leveraging your tribe as a business in that way, very cold, very calculated, almost manipulative, because you're trying to get a certain outcome. It robs you of everything. And so these moments, these blessings, these rituals, these honoring systems, they're the full circle piece. They're the journey home. They're the return to your people. And you know, in the hero's journey, to put this in hero's terms, like the hero's journey, everybody loves the journey, but they forget the key piece, which is the return home to share the wealth. And that's why most people fail. That's why most people suffer. That's why most people struggle, is because they have this lone wolf mentality where they go out and they go out and slay the beast, and then the beast is slain and they come home and they're like, well, now what? I have no purpose.
Right.
Well, your purpose was to teach the others how you slayed the beast, to recount your story so that others may learn from it and see that it's possible. And maybe you give 1 out of 100 people the courage to go and step up to the beast, whatever that beast is. Maybe that beast is getting up for a 9 to 5 that you fucking hate because you have a mouth to feed, you know, or maybe that beast is just having enough energy to move because you're depressed that day. Like whatever that beast is, the point is to go back to your tribe. And these moments are there to honor those that have done that, but maybe up to this point have been a thankless job. Maybe it's been one of those things. And parents know this very, very well, right? Like parents understand the thankless job very well. You know, and these moments are especially adult to adult, because a child to an adult, it's like, yeah, they may say thank you, but they don't really understand, right? Like they really don't get like what it took or what it has taken in order to accomplish those things. But when an adult says, I see you, I see what you do, I see the impact you've made, it carries weight because you know that that person has overcome something similar or experienced something similar. And so these, I personally have been asking Tish and Deborah to make these rituals part of Heroes, because I understand that. And I'm very grateful that they are putting one together to honor somebody in their community, a woman specifically, because that is the softer side of Heroes, right? I can sit here up all day long and I can get on my soapbox and I can rant and I can rave and I can, you need to be better, rah, which is what most, pontificating assholes do in today's social media world, where they create authority by being the loudest or being the most angry. But there's more to it. When you're building a tribe, the female side of the house is creating the community. They're the homemaker. And when I say the homemaker, a home is not just your single abode. Your home is your community, your tribe, your place, right? And we've lost that because we have cookie cutter homes that have yards that are fenced in, that we no longer talk to our neighbors. Quick story, my tree fell down yesterday, and I've talked about this many times. Make friends with your neighbors, become kind with your neighbors, serve your neighbors. And so I'm out there and I don't have a chainsaw right now, and I'm just cutting it down with a handsaw. And I mean, I don't mind the work. It's enjoyable. My neighbor comes over, is like, dude, could you use a chainsaw? I'd be like, that'd be great. He just leaves it with me. So just put it on the doorstep when you're done. That's trust. Nice. Right. And that's built in the community of communication, right? And men of integrity can build that, but women of compassion can build that, right? And when you can build that
we build that network piece of it of today's society is very much so into their phones, right? And so that's great, but you don't reach out, you don't notice that your neighbor's tree fell over. And so for women, we're very much, we go do what we got to do during the day. We come back, we've got household responsibilities, we've got relationship responsibilities, and we struggle because we don't want to fall apart. We know everybody else is falling apart, women wise, right? But we're just like, I don't have time. I don't have time to do this gathering and have coffee. I would love to, I just don't have time. And so it's that piece of when we do come together, even if we don't get much time, when we come together, we can uplift each other so much. And that is our lifeblood that keeps us going and builds that piece of okay, we're all still struggling. It makes me feel better to know that I've talked to 7 or 8 people and understand that we're all in the same boat. And then also that I have 7 or 8 people who just agreed that we're all the same thing. I could now go across the street and ask that person for a cup of sugar with no issue, instead of I don't know, I don't want to bother them. It looked like the husband just came home, or no, we've said as sisters, we're a sisterhood, come, come do, or, with the guys, I'm hey, here's a chainsaw, just bring it back now. The dude should have been let me help you, but
well, he did.
Okay.
He was taking his boy to the aquarium, so okay. He's I'd offer to help, but I'm on my way out, but at least I can do this for you. So and they always do, and I never take it because I'm me, and I'm right. I don't need help is my mentality, which is bullshit.
Which is bullshit. It's bullshit for all of us.
Which is why those moments are so great.
Yeah.
Right. I'm over there struggling with a handsaw, and he just comes over and is like, hey, do you need a chainsaw? He's like, I'll help you without doing the work for you. Right. Yeah, right. That's important too. And that's a guy framework, right? For a female framework, it's I'll just hold space with you. Right. Which is why these blessing ceremonies are so critical. That's why these gatherings are so critical. That's why Sovereign Summit, I can teach everything over an e-learning for Sovereign Summit, but you wouldn't get it. You wouldn't understand it. You wouldn't apply it. You wouldn't be able to connect with it, because the reality is the power of a summit is the connection. Everybody gets to absorb the same energy, the same information, and apply their own thing to it. And if you're by yourself in a house looking at a screen, it does one thing, right? You get the knowledge, but you don't get the gravitas, you don't get the impact. But when you're in a group and you're sitting there and you're listening to the same thing, and then afterwards somebody's like, how did that hit for you? You feel it, it's palpable, it's something tangible. And so that's why these moments are so critical. And so I know we've spent a lot of time on this, but I think it's really important, to understand what that looks like. And especially because today's call is faith. And I think that's where a lot of that self-faith comes from, is the validation, right? Hey, like we talk about it all the time on our team calls, right? I don't know if this is the right way to do things. And we test, we're constantly testing. And sometimes we realize we tested and it sucked because it just doesn't align with who we are, what we want, or we did something because it was the the pragmatic business sense way to do things, but it loses heart because it's not our way of doing things. And so we have to kind of take a few steps back and realize that, okay, it may work for this function or these people, but for us, it's just not, it doesn't align. And so when you have the communal tribe aspect to the house, you have that soundboard, you have that ability to go, this is what I'm thinking. Am I off my rocker? And you can have people either go, yeah, you're missing the mark, right? And it's not a bad thing because I've missed that mark too, right? It isn't a place of judgment, which I think a lot of people are afraid that that's what it is, right? Like this, your tribunals are like more like trials, right? Where it's like you come in and you talk and those council chambers are just filled with like, why are you such a fucking idiot? Like, why don't you understand this? And it's not, and if it is like that, you need a different
new people.
council. Like you are with the wrong fucking people. Which in itself is knowledge, right? That's information you should know. Like I have people that I enjoy hanging out with, but I will never ever go to for advice because their approach to it is to judge, or their approach to it is to dismiss or degrade because it makes them feel better. I don't do that, and I won't receive that well. We'll just end up fighting. So I see them as a person. I see them as somebody who's useful to me in a certain aspect or space, right? Like we've talked about being useful before, something that a lot of people fail to realize is a positive thing, right? Be useful, don't be abused, right? Like use me, don't abuse me. And there's certain people that the way that they speak and the way that they appropriate information to you, it's going to be an abuse. And if that is received as abuse from you, then you should separate yourself from them in that space, right? You can still go have beers with your buddies or like whatever, but if they're holding you back, like don't keep them for counsel. And so like when we're in these conversations, there's many times where I'm like, I missed the mark and I don't know where, but I know I missed the mark. And my counsel, being Tish and Matt, will either go, yeah, you missed the mark and here's where you missed the mark, or here's how I see it. Or they'll come in and go, no, you're just sad right now. Like you're just melancholy right now. You're just having a moment, like because it's slower or you're judging yourself or not giving yourself grace. That's what these moments are supposed to be for. That's what Sovereign Summit's for. That's what all of our like sovereign soirees are for. It's a place where you can find people to resonate with. And maybe you don't resonate entirely. Maybe you only resonate with part. But in that,
that's a good thing too.
Right. In that, knowing what you don't resonate with is just as powerful, right? If not more powerful, because you can weed out all the noise. You can get rid of all the bullshit. And so that's kind of like why I'm really happy that you guys are putting this on and doing this, especially for the women's side of the house. Because me personally, I'm just a red-blooded man who, wants to fight everything. Like that's just how I'm wired, right? Like I went and watched a movie yesterday and it pissed me off so fucking bad because the dude was such a chicken shit. And it made me so angry because I'm like, this is what they're teaching dudes to do. Like, this is the culture that we're instilling in men, is that women are allowed to be warriors, but men need to be hiding and cowering behind their women and let their women deal with it because hell hath no fury. And it's like, yeah, hell hath no fury. Men should be calculated and make sure she never has to get to that point. But we're not teaching that. We're teaching men to be scared, weak cowards. And it's just, it makes me so angry. And so like, I walked out of the theater like, I'm going to fucking kill something. Like I'm so angry right now because that person that they're showing was touted up to be this big deal. And then he just behaved like a fucking chicken shit. And to me, I think that's just a writer who's by nature a coward. So they don't actually understand how it is to be warrior minded and those things. And so these moments for us to connect and in person and say like, yeah, that it's one thing in a movie, it's one thing in this over here, but let me show you what it's like in your day to day. This is what it feels like, and honoring them so that they're seen, right? So that when they go like me, go to a movie and watch something, or a woman goes to a movie and she thinks she has to be perfect and pretty and all these things, and it creates a bad mental image, and they're like, well, I'm not that way. And then you get into a community of people and they're like, yeah, none of us are. Like,
yeah, right.
Like the movies are supposed to hold an ideal and you're supposed to strive for something, but that doesn't mean you take away all the grace for not being perfect, right? Like it's part of it. So circling back, I appreciate it, Tish. Thank you so much. And we'll get that information into the portal and advertise on Instagram, and it'll be public and all that stuff. So today's faith call, and I mean, we could end it there. I mean, this was a great conversation about finding your tribe, and that's part of faith, but also part of family. But I think for me, the faith piece is I've been working on a concept, right? And we talk about the hero's Parthenon, right? And the pillars by which you focus. But and we have our core values, right? Responsibility, integrity, courage, and honor. Like we have those things. But what it lacks is principle and virtue, right? So like, how do you determine where you plant your flag? How do you determine, right? And what does that do for your confidence? What does that do for your doubt? What does that do for your motivations, right? Because I've recently been struggling with, I'm a mouthy guy, right? Like I don't fear consequence of running my mouth, and I don't know why. And it comes up a lot where people tell me, I want to tell you this thing, but I'm afraid to, or I want to say this thing and I'm afraid of being wrong. And I don't understand that proclivity, because if I'm wrong, then I get to learn. And if I'm right, well, then I'm right. So I don't really worry about it. And if somebody wants to get disrespectful, then I trust myself, right? So like, it's fine. So I've been trying to articulate what it is that snap function, because at some point I probably was, right? I just don't remember it, either as a child or as a teenager or a young man. Like, I don't know, there at some point I had to have flipped a switch from timid child who's afraid to open his mouth for being wrong to demonstrative, boisterous person who thinks that, you know, my voice needs to be heard, right? Like there's a switch that has to be flipped. And I've been trying to isolate before I can communicate it where it is. But the thing that keeps echoing in my mind is this idea of usefulness, utility, and everything that we do, whether it's discipline or physical fitness or ideology, it all actually stems from a usefulness, and it all stems from a place of usefulness. The problem is we are not intentional about defining our usefulness. And what I mean by that is we let society tell us what is useful, right? You need to make a bunch of money. Why? Because it's useful. Why is it useful? Because of this, because of that, because maybe it isn't. Maybe you could live off of 50 grand a year and be completely content, right? Maybe you could work 3 days a week and live the life that you want. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know you. I don't know what you're trying to do. But everything you do should come from a place of usefulness, right? And the first thing that I that keeps echoing in my mind is, how do you determine, how do you define, how do you articulate usefulness? Well, most people, it's an emotional thing. How do I feel about it? And I think that this is wrong. I think that this is backwards. If you leverage your emotions and your feelings to determine what is useful, then you will constantly be chasing your tail, and it's a wild goose chase, because some days you'll feel good, some days you'll feel bad. Some days you won't feel anything. You'll just be apathetic, right? Like it's just, we are ebbs and flows of our endocrine systems. We are ebbs and flows of the energy that we have around us, in us, and you know, beyond, like whether we're not consuming something through internet, like, so you're never going to feel like it. And you hear this a lot, right? Like, don't be motivated, be disciplined, like all these cliche bumper sticker theories, right? But I think deeper than that, more nuanced than that, it's is what you're doing serving you beyond just that moment, right? And we talk about it, especially in fitness. We see this, like Tish, you're a power lifter, Matt's a bodybuilder. Matt could get pissed about not being able to lift 800 pounds at his size, or he can realize that he is not training to lift 800 pounds. It does not serve him. His goal is to look a certain way. Therefore, aesthetics is more important than function. Therefore, his functional workouts are different than your functional workouts who wants to lift big weight. Usefulness matters in that conversation, because otherwise you're just chasing your tail. And I know this because that's me, because I'm more of a power builder kind of guy. I want to look somewhat fit, but I don't want to be stage ready, but I don't want to be completely weak. So some days I'm like, fuck, I got to work on abs because I want a six pack. And other days I'm like, well, fuck it. Let's just go pick up 500 pounds. Like, let's just fucking do that. And it doesn't always work, because if you're not training to lift heavy weight, your body's not going to adapt to heavy weight. And if you're eating to lift heavy weight, you're not going to have a six pack. It's just the way it is. And so, I mean, without enhancements, which is a whole other topic, but this goes to everything, right? It goes to finding a mate. And I've talked about this before. The ego-driven thing about people is that they want to be served. And society has told people you should be served. And so Don't settle for anything less. Well, it's like, okay, well, do you know what you want? If the answer is no, then there's your first step. You need to figure out what the fuck you want. You need to figure out where you want to go, where you want to end up. What does success look like? What is your criteria for achieving whatever it is you want to achieve? And in the sense of a relationship, and the way the ego thing comes in is, if you're looking to add a human to your system, and I say system meaning your tribe, your community, your place of life, your sanctuary, whatever that looks like for you, but you're not willing to ask, what would that person want of me, and make those adjustments, then you're never going to have them. And I go through this a lot with coaching men. They're like, why am I this? Why am I that? It's like, because you care only about what she's doing for you. Have you asked what she would need for you to make her feel safe enough and comfortable enough to serve you? Because if the answer is no, then there's where your work lies. Because you're effectively saying, whether you're male or female, I am me, accept me as I am, but you better be the way I want you to be. Well, that's a hypocrite, right? Like, that's you being a hypocrite, because you're saying you better serve me in this way or else, creating demarcation lines of serve me or die, serve me or end, serve me or run, serve me or leave, right? Like, that's a holistically painful way of looking at it. And then if you look at your relationship like that, and then you have kids, this is where a lot of divorces happen, in my opinion. Is like, you look at the relationship as serve me or else, and then you have a kid who's like serve me or else, and now you have an ego battle with a fucking 5-year-old, because the 5-year-old don't give a fuck about your feelings, they just want the fucking cookie. And then you have to figure out how to set boundaries, and you've never built that in the relationship to prepare you for child rearing, because you're over here, your only boundary is do as I ask. I want this, and therefore I get it. It's like, well, what are you going to give me for it? Right. And there's this idea behind the usefulness of, what are you serving? Right. For instance, if I want a job and the job says I will pay, and let me rephrase, if I want a salary of $100,000, I'm going to look at that salary of $100,000, look at jobs that pay $100,000, and then develop a skill set that make me worth $100,000 or gain me that title. Right. Because you realize that you're exchanging the value of your skill set for the $100,000. So if you put that in the scope of relationship, why are you not looking at, I want a man or woman that does X. What does a man or woman that would give me X require for me to earn X? We don't look at it that way. We go, well, this is me, and I want that over there, and I'm not changing, because if they don't love me for me, then fuck you. It's like, well, that's not very viable as a solution. Like, so if the only thing that's different is you say, I will never do back rubs, and they say, well, I will never be with anybody that won't give back rubs, but everything else is perfect, you're going to be like, well, fuck it. I said I would never give back rubs, so I'm never going to do it. Or maybe you compromise. I shouldn't even say compromise, because I hate compromise. You resolve things. How do you resolve that? Like, I don't like giving back rubs. You love getting back rubs. I will give you back rubs when I can. Right? When I feel like I can, I'll do my best. I will try, right? That's resolving the situation, because now they feel heard, they feel loved, they feel whatever, right? So when you look at the span of usefulness, decouple your ego from it, right? And I see this, and I'm using this in faith because it's such a broad topic. I see this in fitness, I see this in business, I see this in relationships, I see this in life. People hit a level, then they back off, but then they still demand that level, right? In business, I built a business, then they sell the business, and then they want to go and build another business off the authority they built with the last business. Well, sorry, bud, you got rid of that business, so you're at zero now. So you got to approach that new business the same way you had this old business. Same thing with the relationship. Guys want to get into relationships where they're like, I'm a good dude, I proved it to this person, so you should just accept it on faith that I'm the same for you as I was with this person. It doesn't work that way. You got to start from ground zero again. And, Simon Sinek, he talks about this a lot in the business world. Is like, all your entitlements are in the name. It's your title. The authority you bring comes from your title. But if you do not earn the title, then you will only succeed in losing the title, not forcing them to give you the entitlement. And so it's this space of like, I want a loving, happy relationship, but I'm not going to do anything to make it loving and happy. I want to build a great business off the accolades that I've already built, because people should just know that if I did it over here, I did it over here, I'll do it over here. I don't know. I didn't know you when you had that business. Two, I don't know what you're going to do in this field. I don't know if it's the same field or whatever. If you're a 9-to-5er, it's the same thing, right? If you take a job with a title and you said, hey, I'm going to do this job as this title, and you go into a room and you're like, hey, I'm doing this job as this title, it's not you that carries authority, it's the title. So if you walk in and say, I'm a specialist, they're like, well, your title says you're a specialist, so I assume you're a specialist. But now you have to earn that title. You have to prove that you're that title. Now you move to a different title. Maybe you're no longer a specialist. Maybe you're a leader, right? All the authority you had over here is now having to be reproven over here. And it's no different in life and business and in anything. You're constantly having to prove yourself. And I think most people don't want to, so they quit because their ego gets in the way. I shouldn't have to. I've already done it over here. Why do I have to do this again? Because you made the choice to move. You made the choice to relinquish that title and go to another title. And it's that greener pastures thing. Well, once I have that title, everything will be fine. Once I have that relationship, everything will be fine. Once I have this thing, everything will be fine. You're just restarting a marathon every fucking time. Instead of just staying there and making it what you could have by serving first and foremost, and then getting entitlements based on the authority that you've developed by serving usefully. Now, I'm not saying like stay in abusive relationships and try and make it work. Like, abuse is different. Disrespect is different. If you cannot garner respect, get the fuck out, because that's a whole other problem. That's an underlying foundational issue. If despite empirical evidence, you are not able to garner respect, then that person has their own issues and they are not capable of serving. They are not capable of being there for you. Same thing with business. If you have a business partner, they are not capable of serving you, break off the disrespect. If you are in a job and you have a leader who is not promoting you or not giving you your entitlements because you've earned those entitlements, then your choice is either stay and deal with the disrespect or leave. But know if you leave, you're going to be starting at square zero, hoping that it'll be a better opportunity later. But you're still starting at square zero. It's not transferable, right? And entrepreneurs talk about this a lot. Like, just because you make $100,000 in a 9-to-5, a lot of entrepreneurs think they're just going to turn around and make $100,000 in a side business. And then you conflate that with the logic of burn the boats, no plan Bs, right? It's like, well, no wonder you guys are fucking miserable. Your lifestyle is $100,000 and you're taking it down to zero in the hopes to make $1 million. What happens in between is homelessness, loss of property, bankruptcy, loss of relationship, extra stressors, family stressors, hungry kids. Like, understand the usefulness. If you want to build a business, I'm all about it. I have a day job. I build this. But I keep the day job until I get this to where I need it to be. Now, is it exact 1-for-1? No. While I'm working my day job, I'm minimizing my bills. I'm lowering my overhead in my daily life so that when I can properly earn enough money in the side job, the overhead isn't so high, so I don't have to wait as long. So I'm moving usefulness around. Could I stay in my day job? 100%. I love my day job. I have a great boss. I have a great job. I love what I do, but I love this more. And I want to do this more. So why would I burn that down to go to zero? To then hopefully, unproven, no idea if this is going to work. I'm not a business guy. I tell people all the time, I'm not a business guy. I'm a people person. I like to engage. I like to talk. I like to coach. I like to help. How that relates to business, I don't fucking know. So that's my shortcoming. So while I'm learning those skills, I have to have something over here to make sure that I'm not undermining all my other usefulness, right? I have a family. They rely on me. Why would I burn that bridge, destroy my own leadership because I followed my passion, which is the bullshit people hear all the time, right? So this idea, and I'm still trying to work on the content for like an infographic to make it simple. But the reality is, be intentional about your usefulness. What are your outcomes? What are you looking for? And then Stow the ego. Be okay starting at 0 again. Because as your usefulness changes, your level's going to change. Your skill set's going to change. The necessary skill sets are going to change. Right? I started woodworking recently. It takes me 5 times longer to make a wooden box than somebody who's been doing it 10 years, right? I could easily been like, fuck, it didn't work out the first time. It's ugly. It's all this stuff. Throw it away. Never try it again. And I'm never going to get there. Or I can go, dude, it's your first fucking box. Like, put in the time. Cut your teeth on it. So stow the ego and be okay with going to 0. And then, be mindful of disrespect. Just because you're at 0 doesn't mean you're not worthy of respect. Humans should be respected. And I see this a lot, especially with people who have been abused, who have been in narcissistic relationships, who have been dismissed a lot. They'll go to 0 and they think, well, who the hell am I? And then they won't lead with the title. They won't lead with the usefulness. So don't let disrespect, which is somebody else's problem, stop you from doing what you want to do. Right? And then when things are wrong, say it. Don't run from it. Because worst case scenario, you're going to identify something that somebody's either going to be willing to fix. And if they're not willing to fix it, you're going to identify that as a problem as well. And you'll be able to get rid of them faster. It saves everybody time. Right? And that's it goes back to intentionality. Almost everything in your life needs to be intentional. And get counsel. Seek a group of like-minded people.
I was going to say to that too, that usefulness, but also how can you serve? How what do I want, and how is that what do I need, and how can you serve me? But it's also, how can I serve you? Because even when you get to that 0 place of like, okay, well, I'm changing and making choices, and I'm starting over, but starting over means also like, what am I going to do to help the people around me? What can I do to help them? And it's a hard mindset to sort of get into sometimes, because you're like, well, I need right now. But if I'm only ever asking and I'm not giving, then I'm not helping the people around me to have an equal energy exchange. So what are you willing to do to, in your relationship? What are you willing to do for the business? You talked about the $100,000 job thing. And so like, cool, you can come up with, what am I willing to give to receive that $100,000? And what am I willing to give in a relationship? I was recently talking to somebody, same as what you've kind of said, from a man's point of view, and they were like, well, yeah, well, I want these things in a relationship, and I want this person to do these things for me. And I was like, well, what are you willing to do? And their answer was like, be here. And I was like, well, then that's not a relationship. That's somebody taking care of you. That's not you. It's reciprocal. And so
You want a parent,
again,
not a partner. I say that all the time.
Yeah,
Most
yeah,
people in today's society are looking for a replacement parent, not a partner.
yeah. Or caregiver, some
Or
sort of like,
caregiver.
okay, well,
Yeah.
but you have to give. You have to be willing to give of yourself, and sometimes freely. I mean, you with coaching, and me a little bit in what I'm doing, and it's like you have to give of yourself, and even if there's no, you're not receiving money back for it, you're helping somebody. How can you help? You hold a door for somebody. You pick up something that somebody dropped for them. Like there's sometimes
Just
it's little
smile at
things.
them sometimes. Like
Yeah,
when I'm in the
you know.
grocery store and I get it, like, especially after everything we just went through, everybody's just upset to even exist in the grocery store, right? Like
Yeah,
they're mad that they have to be there. And the amount of personal reciprocation that I get by elating them with like, how's your day? Like with a smile, and I know this is kind of like against the grain of what most society wants today, because most people believe that they are curmudgeons by nature. And that's just not true. We've trained ourselves to be curmudgeons because we fear. We fear judgment. We fear violence. We fear the evil guy. We fear the bad guy. Just keep your head down and you'll get home safe. And I will tell you right now, it is the worst farce that any society has put on man since the beginning of time. Yes, take precautions. Yes, make sure you're safe. But I will tell you right now, I have had a bad energy from somebody and just engaged with them and it dissipated.
Yeah.
95% of the attacks, they're looking for victims. This is a statistic. They interviewed criminals, muggers, robbers, violent criminals, and they're looking for a victim, not a fighter. And if you're brave enough to smile and hold your head up, 9 times out of 10, you're no longer a victim. And so serving sometimes is giving somebody the opportunity to not be a victim. So when I smile at somebody, I'm not just presenting myself as confident. I'm giving somebody an opportunity to present back. And it's a service.
Yeah.
And it's not to pat myself on the back. It's merely just to say humans are by nature communal. And so when we're in this space where it's just constantly like, just get from point A to point B, and I gotta stay safe, and I gotta stay in my car, and I gotta put my mask on, and I gotta do all this stuff. Like, it winds people up, and then they become these springs of loaded energy. And eventually people snap. But all it takes to release that energy is to just go, hey, how's your day? How's it going?
Right.
You having a good day? Like, oh, you having a bad day? What's that like? Right? Like, explain that journey to me. Is there anything I can do to help you? And all of a sudden, that spring is just getting a little bit lessened, and that kinetic energy is no longer stored up. And eventually, you do that enough times, you do that community enough times, and that service becomes natural. Because when I was I grew up in the hood, and nobody looked at anybody because it was a threat. It was a threat display. Everybody was territorial. So it's very much like this. And my dad used to tell me, don't look down at your feet ever. You look every man in the eye. I'm like, Dad, I'm going to get jumped. He's like, then take your lickings, but you better hurt him back. But you don't look down. Don't let anybody make you feel small. And so I learned that. And then I come to where I live now, and it's a very nice neighborhood. It's very nice. And people feel safe here. And so you have a higher probability of people nodding when you walk by, smiling when you walk by. And that safety is born from a lack of fear. And most people think that fear is what creates safety. But actually, it makes you weak. It makes you a victim. The more you fear, the less courage you have, the more you're going to have problems. And so when you go to this usefulness, if your intent, your usefulness is, I just want to feel safe, then become violent. Go learn a martial art. Go learn how to shoot a gun. Go, learn how to communicate in public, like take public speaking. And right, like the reality is, if you want to feel safe, then you have to take responsibility for being so good. You like I say this thing and it pisses my girl off, but I always say they haven't found a way to kill me yet. And the reality is I've gone through a lot in my life, and I don't talk about it because I don't think that it's important. Right? I know a lot of people like to sit up and pontificate about their problems and all that shit, but I don't think it's important. But my mindset is generated on the fact that I've died twice, 3 times if you include when I was a baby. I've bled, I've been shot, I've been stabbed, like I've gone through the hell of it. I've gotten concussions from getting jumped and hit with a cinder block. Like, I'm still here, so I'm not fragile. So no matter what happens, my mindset is, I'll be all right as long as I don't quit, as long as I get back up, as long as I develop my skills, as long as I completely use every moment that I have to be useful, I'll be all right. And that makes people uncomfortable because they're like, oh, that's arrogance. It can end in a snap. And I was like, yeah, it could. I could walk out and get hit by a bus. That could happen. But the reality is, I'd much rather have every moment lived as if nothing can hurt me than sitting in a corner of my room, anxious and scared and paranoid about everything because I fear that I'm not good enough.
Right.
So
And that ties back into faith too. Like, you have faith in yourself that you can help me and get yourself through a situation. You have faith in the person across from you. If you're smiling at them, you have faith that they're not going to see your eye contact and come running and stab you. That
yeah,
there's a faith piece that you have to project out and accept, and we could take it to a higher power level of faith too. Of you know, we could all step outside and get hit by a bus, but I'm going to have faith that my plans that I have later in the day, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to have faith that my car is just going to magically start and not explode. I'm going to have faith that my car is going to make it to its destination and not have some major accident or, issue. I'm going to have faith that I'm going to make it back at the end of the day tonight. I'm going to have faith that my house will be standing so that I can lay my head on my pillow. I'm going to have faith that the sun's going to come back up in the morning.
And that's why,
When
like,
you
the best example of like a higher power faith that I've ever heard is driving in the fog. And there's an Irish proverb that talks about this too, and it starts with, "May the road ever meet your feet," right? Like, may it rise to meet you. The reality is, when you drive, you're driving on the hope that the road will still be there. And so this idea of like driving through the fog, you don't know what's in that fog. So you're driving forward blindly, hoping and having faith that the road will still meet your wheels and that there won't be any obstruction in your way. And you can only do that because you trust that you'll be able to react in time. You trust yourself. And that's life, right? Whether it's higher power, whether it's stepping outside, whether it's driving your car, life is about the faith and the hope that the road will rise to meet you. Because for all you know, a sinkhole will open up right below you and swallow you whole. It's happened. It's happening in Venezuela. It's happened in Cuba.
Yeah.
It's happened in Argentina. Sinkholes just open up under the ground and just eat up whole cars, right? Like, there's no guarantees. And so if you want to feel confident, you have to find your way on hope in the beginning and then place your stock in what you've developed as skills. And if you don't feel confident in your skills, then develop the skills you don't feel confident in. When I was taking martial arts early on, there was this Shidoshi, which is basically a sensei or teacher. And he used to say the same thing. He'd say, when somebody asks you what you're strong at, tell them what you're weakest at. And when somebody asks what you're weakest at, tell them what you're strong at. And everybody's like, that's stupid. It's like, the reality is, especially in martial arts, if you tell somebody what you're weak in, they're going to train that move exclusively so that when they fight you, they can pick apart your weakness. So if you tell them what you're strong in for your weakness, then they'll be training the wrong fucking thing. But you should always be training your weakest move. You should always be training it. And your strongest move, you should also always be training it. So it's this beautiful place when it comes to faith, is you have to have something tangible that you can rely on, right? I joke all the time. There's a line from Thor where he goes, "I have no plans to die today." And Heimdall says, "Most don't," or "most do," rather. And it's like, but that's the truth of it. See, most people go through life with plans to die. They're already dead. They already have this fear, this apprehension to just exist. And so they don't live. Right? And I love quotes, so I'm using a lot of quotes today, but there's another quote that says, "Most men die at 25 and get buried at 75.
Yeah.
That, if that isn't society in today in a nutshell, I don't know what is.
Right.
Right? We go and we set our life up, get it all perfect at 25, and then we work to the grave. And then what? When do you travel? When do you love? When do you experience? When do you see the sunrise? Right? I'm grateful. I've made it a point to adventure. I've gotten up at 2 a.m. to drive to the Grand Canyon to watch the sunrise over the Grand Canyon. It's something that gives me goosebumps to this day. It was beautiful. Right? I've camped in the snow. And I've watched deer dig for ferns in the snow. That's something you can't take from me. And when you can have those moments, it's a lot easier to just wake up and be like, not today. It's too beautiful for it to be 60 degrees outside and sunny. Like, today's not the day. And if it is, it's a good day to die. Like, I don't know how to think the way the rest of society thinks, because I think like this. And it makes it hard for people to connect with me because they think that I'm somehow dehumanized because I think like this, right? I'm either arrogant, or I just don't understand, or it's so easy for me. It's not easy. It's just, I make a simple choice.
Well, and if you ask any, hospice person, patient or whatever, that, what are they addressing in those last few moments or weeks or months or whatever. It's the I shoulda, couldas.
It's the regrets.
If I'd only left, or those that have some sort of notice and they're like, okay, well, I was given 6 months. I'm going to spend the next 4 months just fuck all. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna go camp in the snow. I'm gonna go drive for the sunset because it may be my last one. But if we live that mindset every day to the best of our ability, whatever that ability is, like, okay, I can't drive to the Grand Canyon. Can I sit on my porch? Can I go down the block so I have a better view?
Mhm.
But that mindset still like, let me get up and enjoy the things that I can do, especially if they're like free.
Yeah.
I can walk to the park and I can sit in the grass and I can stare into the dirt and watch the ladybugs and pontificate over what their life might be like, and take a moment and be still. But it's the mindset to have of like, today's not the day. Okay, well, what is today? Today is anything. It's the
Mhm.
possibility of anything.
Yep.
It's the faith that there is a day to do something with, and I can choose a million different things to do, positive or negative.
Yep. And
So,
I think the greatest gift I've ever been given was from Marcus Torgerson at King's College. And I'll leave you guys with this. Death is not scary nor bad. It's an inconvenience. We're mad because we know we will die, but we're never ready for it to happen. So it just inconveniences us. And so the reason that this is the greatest gift that I was given was because it came when my dad had a stroke. And I was hurting and I was sad and I was pretty broken, but I still had to do the job. I had 10 men in a cabin in Utah, 11 hours from my father when he had a stroke, with a promise of delivering and serving for the weekend. And I think it was day two. I think it was day two, and it was the morning of. And I still had to go through the next 2.5 days and drive home. And I sit down with Marcus and he tells me, he's like, why are you mad? Like, why are you sad? Why are you upset? And at first I was like, what the fuck kind of question is that? Like, that's like, why do you think, I'm fearing for my dad. And he goes, no, that's not it. You told me yourself, he's overweight. He doesn't take care of himself. He's older. So you knew it was going to happen. You're mad because it's inconvenient for you. And he was right. I was mad because I wasn't there. I was mad because I felt guilty that I couldn't be there for him or help him. I was upset that he didn't take care of himself. It was all about me. That's life. When I got back, I told my dad, I said, listen, my job from here to the day you leave this world is to make sure your death is as little of an inconvenience as possible. And we agreed. And since then, we've spent a lot of time together. We don't talk as much as we did right after, but that's because we've already said all the things we need to say. My dad, I grew up with my dad not saying I love you. My dad has told me I love you more times in the last year because of it. Because I said I don't want to let anything unsaid. I don't want to have any regrets. When my parents pass, God forbid, whenever that happens, it will hurt. But I will not have regrets. I don't understand people that leave it up to chance, knowing so much, and how many people bitch and complain and moan about how they didn't use the time more wisely, how they didn't prioritize their
right.
parents. We see that every day. And most people see death as an inconvenience, themselves included. I don't. Death is part of life. We will leave this plane and nobody gets to choose when. So why would I see death as an inconvenience? I see death as a gift. Because with death, it creates urgency. With urgency, it creates action. With action, it creates the need to be better than I was. And I love Marcus to death because that man has gone through a hell that
A lot.
I couldn't even imagine. And yet he smiles and he serves and he's there for people. And he recently found his faith in God, and watching him travel down that path from the darkness he was in to the light that he's in now, it's a glorious thing to watch, because I think he said what he said to me more for him than he was saying it for me. It was just as cathartic for him as it was for me, because he's getting up in age. He fears his own death. We all do. But from that, I think he realized like he was living life like death was inconvenient, and he changed it. And he took the steps and he made the adjustments. And you know, when you talk about faith and usefulness and all this stuff, you don't want regret. I don't regret anything. I'm sad about some things and how they worked out, and I wish they worked out differently. But at the same time, I wouldn't be who I was if they did.
Right.
We are all a culmination of our life experiences and every choice we have made from the minute we were born to now. And if one thing was different, our entire life trajectory would be different. So stop seeing death as inconvenient. Stop living in fear. Wake up and just choose today to be the best day yet. And may the road rise up to meet you. Like, I mean, the Celts,
Amen.
for me, with the Irish, like they had a way of saying things.
Yeah.
And it hasn't changed. So I appreciate everybody joining. Tish, thank you for the conversation as always. And then I'll talk to you later. We'll see about scheduling, connecting, and I'll get these uploaded soon.
Awesome. Have a good day.
Thank you.